Hey, and welcome to Game Talk. I'm your host, Sam, and me on today I'm joined by Connor
Hey guys.
and Mike.
Hello.
And today we're going to do a top 5 ranking of our favorite Nintendo 64 games.
Of all 5 good Nintendo 64 games, we'll say them 3 times.
Yeah, so Connor is slowly but surely turning into the resident hater on the podcast. I do get that the N64 had fewer games and fewer good games than a lot of future consoles from Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, but I do maintain that N64 had some really, really good games.
The highlights are insanely high. I'm not a hater of the good N64 games, but if you compare it even to its content, like the only console I can think of that had fewer good games is like a Sega Saturn or Virtual Boy, if we're even going to count that. But the NES had way more, the Super NES had way more, and then the GameCube had way more.
I hear you. I'm just in a position where the N64 especially holds a very, very... It holds a close place to my heart because it was the first console I owned. A lot of my childhood memories are associated with it, so obviously I'm going to rank it much higher.
Right.
But
it can't be, like, it put Nintendo in a really weird spot where they were on top of the world pre-N64, and then they went on to N64 and were making the best games still, but we're not selling.
Yeah, I want to say Nintendo was behind.
it really was the first evidence that Nintendo could bleed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you look at their contemporaries at the time, and you had the PlayStation 1, which was using discs, and the Dreamcast, I believe, was Sega's alternative.
Yeah, no, it was the Saturn, really. The Dreamcast was more against the GameCube.
Yeah, it was like the Saturn, which also I believe used CDs, right?
Yeah.
So you had a cartridge system with relatively small cartridges versus the PlayStation, which was using 600 megabyte or whatever CD-ROMs.
Right. You could just fit a lot more game on there.
You could fit a lot more game on there, and you could fit better music. You didn't have to rely upon sound fonts or MIDI files.
But the weird thing to me is that Nintendo... I mean, if I look at the Nintendo Switch, yeah, there's a lot of third parties, but if I'm listing the best Nintendo Switch games, they're all first party. Except for maybe, like, Monster Hunter Rise. Whereas the N64, yeah, they're all first party, but that's because there were very few third party games at all. I would wager neither of you have a third party game on your list.
Not on my list. I definitely owned one or two third-party games. But one thing I will say is that it's funny to me because the N64, when I was a kid, right? Like really a kid, I'm talking between the ages of like 3 to 7, is when I had really good taste in video games. So I had really good taste when I first got into video games. And then my taste turned into absolute garbage in the PS2 generation and like halfway through the PS3 generation or PS3 360 generation. And then I started discovering a new set of tastes that I would qualify as good. But I was extremely based as a child is what I'm saying, I suppose. And then I became a cringe teenager and then a normal adult.
I think it's easy to be based as a child because it's like, yeah, of course your parents are going to buy you Super Mario 64.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the obvious choice.
You're only going to get the games that your parents like.
Yeah.
Or think that are appropriate. Or I mean, obviously Mario they probably saw on the cover of a magazine or on CNN or something, you know?
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, this, seems appropriate.
I'm so surprised my parents didn't get skeeved out on seeing Mass Effect on Fox News. How'd they let me buy that?
No, by that time my parents kind of stopped paying attention.
Yeah.
They just cursorily knew that, hey, video games are kind of violent now, and they weren't really okay with that, but they let it slide, obviously, because what can they do?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's beside the point. That's a whole nother episode, honestly. We could do a whole episode on our childhood of gaming.
I think we have before.
Yeah, I think we have.
Maybe a couple times.
Another.
I mean, honestly, this episode is that as well.
For you, yeah.
We're very nostalgic podcast.
This is early for me. Like my N64, I was born in 1996, the year Super Mario 64 came out. So
yeah, so I was born in 93, and I remember playing... I got an N64 when I was 3 years old, which is very early.
Yeah.
But yeah, it changed my life.
But
for the better, who knows?
Was N64 your first
yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
mine was a Super NES, ironically. Probably also around 3 years old. I didn't get an
Yeah.
N64 until probably, I don't know. I don't think it was 2000. I don't know.
Wow, that's approaching like
I had
GameCube
one
territory.
for
Yeah.
most of my childhood. I remember this much.
I don't think I had an N64 for very long before I got a GameCube. It was probably only a year or two.
Yeah, the GameCube. See, that's the thing. Like, I don't think I started getting consoles at launch until the PS3 360 era. So I don't know how deep into the GameCube's life cycle I actually got the GameCube. It couldn't have been more than like a year or two.
I still don't get consoles at launch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Ever since the PS3 360 era.
Yeah, ever
I've
since the
been-
360, we don't get consoles at launch anymore.
Well, I'm the opposite.
But
I
you
get every
started to.
console at launch, basically, except for Xbox consoles.
I learned my lesson. I bought a 3DS on launch day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also an ambassador.
Yeah.
What an honorable title to have.
Yeah. The idiot who paid $60 too much for a 3DS title.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, without further ado, we can go from rank 5 to rank 1, and we'll go around the horn here. I want to qualify mine with that I am going to limit my ranking specifically to games that I actually played on the Nintendo 64, simply because I think that will lead to a more interesting and diverse list between the three of us.
And when you say that, do you mean ones you played as a kid?
Not necessarily, just on the
Okay.
N64.
Because some of mine I played as an adult,
Yeah.
but on hardware.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously you two don't have to limit yourselves that way, but I'm going to do that just to add some diversity to this list. And I guess I'll kick things off here at number 5, Donkey Kong 64.
Wow.
So I don't think either
Oh,
of you
I
two.
forgot about Donkey Kong 64. That
Well,
would have
that's
made
okay.
my list, but it's fine.
Well, too late for that.
Yeah, it's a little late.
But yeah, Donkey Kong 64, I distinctly remember not owning this game, and I remember going to like a party or something at my parents' friend's house, and their kids had Donkey Kong 64, and there were just this horde of kids gathered around this TV, slack-jawed, staring at this game in awe. And I was one of them. I thought it was the coolest looking game I've ever seen. And I really wanted it. And eventually I did get it, and I had so much fun with this game. Never finished it. Notoriously a very difficult game, especially at that age. But I loved Donkey Kong 64.
Not
And-
a fondly remembered game.
I know,
at
not
large.
I've been
reflecting-
watching randomizer runs of it, so I don't know why I forgot about it.
Yeah, nowadays it's not looked at too fondly, but back in the day, and especially after playing Mario 64, to have another sort of game in that same vein where it was a collectathon 3D platformer adventure game. And obviously it had a lot more going on than 64, because 64 was kind of just, hey, go into this level, find this star. Donkey Kong 64 had several playable characters, each with different move sets that you could learn, and the levels were bigger than Mario 64. So it really felt like, at the time to me, another step up from Mario 64.
I don't know if you'll remember this. Was this after Banjo Tooie or before it?
It was definitely before Banjo
Yeah.
Tooie.
But
Maybe
after
it's somewhere around
Kazooie.
there.
After Kazooie, I'm not sure, but
It might have been Rare's last game on the N64.
No, because I
that's
think
not true.
Banjo Tooie. I think that was Conquer.
definitely, because I distinctly remember. I remember the day I got Banjo Tooie. It's a very vivid memory for me, and it was way after Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a list of their games and when they
I
were
will
released.
say Donkey Kong's absolutely nutty amounts of collectibles makes for a very interesting randomizer, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing too that really made it distinguish from Mario 64 was that it had tons of collectibles, not just stars. And kid me was just like, "Oh, this is like Mario 64 but next level."
So
Yeah.
you had the expansion pack too, right? You had to play Donkey
You
Kong.
had to. It was mandatory to have the expansion pack.
I don't remember.
The game
But
would
if-
not run, and it came with the expansion.
Yeah.
If you're saying this, then I must have.
So
Yeah,
this
it was
game
a little
had
red pack.
notoriously it had a memory leak, and they ran out of time to fix the memory leak. So instead, they shipped the game with an expansion pack that gave your N64 more memory. The game can
That's so
actually run
funny.
for an hour, I think, maybe 2 hours without the expansion pack before it would actually crash. Modders have like gotten around the check, but the game will not launch vanilla without the expansion pack. So they shipped it.
Could you imagine?
Famously very expensive. Well, that was just normal back then. Like the N64 didn't have it as much, but lots of Super NES cartridges had hardware in them. Famously Star Fox, especially, and Yoshi's
And I
Island
think
as
the
well.
kicker was that they also included with every copy of the game an expansion pack if you bought it brand new.
Well, video games also did not have
Yeah.
a fixed, like the $60 video game didn't exist yet. The prices had not normalized in that way. Video games were very varying in price. So I suspect Donkey Kong was probably a pretty expensive game because of that.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you mentioned that because I have no memory of the expansion pack.
I mean, you were 3,
I just
right?
remember
You
playing
probably
the
didn't-
game.
You
It
didn't
was
have to deal with
probably
it.
you already.
Well, no,
probably had
I
it
definitely
installed.
didn't. I don't think I played Donkey Kong when I was 3. I think that was a year or two later.
Okay, but still, you probably were not messing with the hardware of your console. That was probably something
Oh,
you had handled
absolutely
or
not.
Your mom,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
because you're the oldest sibling, right?
yes.
Okay.
So yeah, Donkey Kong 64, and I distinctly remember the cartridge being like this yellow gold color.
Yeah, this
Yeah, it's
banana
pretty.
yellow.
No,
Yeah.
it was like Donkey Kong and Zelda were the only ones that got those, I think.
Yeah, Zelda only got a gold cartridge for its original release. Donkey
Mhm.
Kong had this banana yellow cartridge, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I like collecting the colored cartridges. I have a
Yeah.
copy of, I have a copy of Doom for Super NES just because it's red and I think it looks cool.
Yeah. And I remember kid me thinking that, oh, this is so cool. You get guns in this game, right? And Donkey Kong had a coconut gun.
Yeah.
Diddy Kong had a peanut gun. Man, it was a fun game. I wonder what I'd think if I ever revisited it because I have not played that game in forever.
I do not imagine it's aged very well.
Yeah. So maybe I can
looks
just
really
relegate it
slow.
to my memories, but shout outs to that game. I also remember there was like a movie or TV series loosely based off of this game.
Not just that game.
Crystal Coconut, right?
Yeah,
Donkey
it was
Kong.
based off of like Donkey Kong-esque. I remember
yeah.
this show because it was
I remember
very
a TV
funny.
show. I don't remember
Yeah.
a movie.
Well, yeah, I think it was.
It was a-
There
it
was
was a TV
definitely a
show.
movie. There was
Banana
definitely a
Slammer.
movie as well. Yeah, Crystal Coconut.
cream pie, you know?
And I remember watching that movie a lot as a kid. Because you know when you're a kid, you just watch the same nonsense over and
Yes.
over again. So yeah, I remember the VHS having that and watching that a lot. And also, shout-outs to the DK rap.
Oh,
That
yeah.
thing, iconic. Incredible.
A generational song.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all I have to say about Donkey Kong 64.
I can go next. My number 5 spot is The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, which is the
Wow.
only game on my list that I have not played on an N64. I actually played the 3DS remake of this one. But I just like it. It's a really weird Zelda game. I don't think it had the impact that Ocarina of Time had, but what a novel idea to do a Zelda game time loop in the 90s.
Yeah.
Unpredictable. Like I cannot imagine anyone saw that coming. And even if you'd read rumors about it, like you wouldn't. If they told me that they were doing that now, I wouldn't believe them.
Plus,
Really good game,
especially
though.
coming off the heels of Ocarina of Time, you got to be thinking, how do they possibly continue this idea, top this idea? And they go in such a swerve direction,
Yeah,
make the tone really, really dark.
And it
They
was-
ditch Adult Link completely, which I feel like might have been a controversial choice
Yeah.
at the time. I don't know.
it's
but-
the only Zelda game where you get to play as races other than Hylian. You can play as a Zora, a Deku Scrub, and a Goron.
Yeah.
And also a god, I guess, if you 100% it. And I love that. Like, most Zelda games I do not feel are worth 100%ing, but Majora's Mask, I haven't, by the way. I have not finished this game, unfortunately. At all. I don't think I've beaten it, let alone 100%ed it.
I'm the
But-
same. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I enjoyed my time with it. I think the dungeons are good. It's a little small, but it was developed in like a year. And I think what it loses in the core content, sort of the same way Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are really, what it loses in its core content, it makes up for by the side content being a lot better than typical for Zelda. Not that it's usually bad, but there was a lot of focus on the side content in Majora's Mask. It is worth doing just about everything there is to do in that game.
Yeah. The side quests notoriously are some of the best in the franchise.
Yeah.
And man, I just remember the anxiety of playing that game, dude.
Yeah, historically, I don't do terribly well with time limits, which is ironic since my favorite game of all time has a pretty strict one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like also Majora's Mask, once you're more than a few hours into the game, the time limit kind of takes a back seat, largely. The time limit stops you from doing everything, but you have like a generous amount of time to finish a dungeon.
Yeah,
I like it.
Majora's Mask, another one of those games I never actually played as a kid. I played when I was, I think, in my late teens. So,
oh man,
And-
I played it for the first time.
As
The Switch
a plus
was
for
out.
Majora's Mask, you can, if you know what you're doing, you can complete the game in one cycle.
no way, really.
No, you
Yeah,
can't.
speedrunners have.
Oh, well, with bugs, yeah.
Not even with just bugs. I think you can do it glitchless.
I don't
Let me
think you-
double check. But
no, because you have to get the giants to. You can't even leave the town on your first cycle.
I think it's one cycle past
I could see it
Yeah.
being one. Yeah, the second cycle. Yeah,
the second cycle. You do it in one cycle.
yeah. That's believable if you know
Yeah.
the route through the dungeons and everything and do the bare minimum to complete
They call
it. I
it
could
one
see that.
cycle because that first cycle is someone
You
has
just
done
have to get the
glitches.
ocarina. Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to get the ocarina. You can't skip that first cycle.
No.
So yeah, it is possible to do everything in that game on one cycle. It's just very tight and anxiety inducing.
And I will say that that first cycle is the reason I didn't play this game as a kid. My buddy Christian had it on his Wii, like on the Wii Virtual Console. And I watched him play it, and all I saw was that first cycle, which is long. It's like 20 minutes
Yeah.
long, maybe longer.
Yeah.
I forget how long the 3 days. And you have to play through the entire 3 days, and it's not very good. It's
The
maybe
entire
the
Clogtown segment.
yeah, it's one of the worst in my opinion. Like Zelda started a trend of Zelda having really terrible openings that you just kind of have to grit your teeth and get through. And I
Yeah.
think this is one of the worst. This and Skyward Sword are probably the two worst ones.
Oh my god, Skyward Sword though.
Oh, it's
Cannot,
insufferable.
I
dude.
cannot handle that, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Well, the problem with
It's
Skyward
so
Sword
bad.
is it doesn't go away. The game is still like tutorializing stuff 8 hours in.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
yeah, Majora's
no,
Mask.
overall, Majora's Mask is great. I would recommend, and I feel this way largely about Ocarina of Time as well. Probably play the 3DS remake. It's a replacement level remake.
All right, Mike, what's your number 5? But yours aren't ranked, right?
Mine are not in any particular order, and I did make sure these were games I played on original hardware, not just, well, mostly as a kid. My first one that I came up with was Diddy Kong Racing,
Very nice.
which
I always
if
forget
you're
about
not,
that game.
Yeah, everyone forgets about Diddy Kong Racing, but it kind of slapped.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
it did a lot of stuff that Sonic went on to do with like Sonic Racing Transformed, kind of
Like,
with the
it was-
planes and
It was one of the first real competitors, and I think it's the first appearance of Banjo and Conker.
it is.
Yeah. So two of Rare's like big characters originated in a mascot racer that came out in 1990 something.
It's also just such a weird game because I have never wanted really a racing game with a hub world. It's
Yeah,
never really
a
crossed my
hub-based
mind.
Racing game,
Yeah.
absolutely diabolical. I remember my copy as a kid glitched out, and for some reason, I had this with several games. Like, I'd load the game up, it would be corrupted in such a way that everything's unlocked.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh no, as a kid. Oh no. I remember it happened for a PS1 game as well. Like, everything was unlocked. Suddenly we had access to all the stages, and I don't know whether it was like my parents going around me and playing the game
Or they just had a cheat code and plugged it in so that you could mess around with everything.
or that, or the game was just broken. Who knows? It's hard to tell.
Yeah, back then you never know.
Yeah, you never know. You can't tell as a kid. But
Yeah, you're just like, oh, this is happening now, and you roll with it.
this is happening now. So the game's hard. Game was hard as a kid. I consider myself okay at racing games, but Diddy Kong Racing was one of those games that I remember being difficult.
Diddy Kong Racing, I remember not owning, but it was one of those games where I went to someone's house and I was like, "Oh, you have Diddy Kong Racing," and I remember playing it and having a lot of fun. But it was very much okay, I don't really need this because I have Mario Kart.
And
Is
it
how I
had
felt at the
boss
time.
fights. Diddy Kong Racing
Yeah.
had boss fights.
Was the Diddy Kong Racing, this is an aside, the one on the Nintendo DS, was that a sequel or a remake?
Remake.
Okay.
Remake without Banjo in it, but it included like some other Nintendo characters to replace it.
Probably didn't have
'Cause-
Conker either.
Rare developed the game.
Yeah.
Rare released the game. Rare went to Microsoft. Nintendo maintained the rights to Donkey Kong because Donkey Kong was a Rare property.
Diddy Kong was kind of up in the air for a bit.
Mhm.
But Nintendo
Could
definitely
you
owns
imagine that
Diddy Kong
world
now.
where
Donkey Kong went for
Microsoft had
Oh my
Donkey Kong?
god, yeah. That'd be so weird.
wild. But I understand why Nintendo wanted Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong was kind of one of their mascot characters.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Donkey Kong was there from the beginning almost.
He's older
It's-
than Mario. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
I'd say that Diddy Kong Racing walked so Mario Kart could run, but Mario Kart came out on the SNES.
Yeah. No, it was definitely
Yeah.
inspired by Mario Kart, but that doesn't.
Yeah.
There's room for more kart racers. It's a fun
It
game.
is a fun game. It's a very fun kart racer. It's probably one of the earliest ones that I had access to since I didn't play any Mario Kart games until I want to say Wii actually. I wanted to play Double Dash as a kid, but my parents would never get it for me.
Yeah, same.
Mhm.
I didn't have
So,
Mario Kart. I had Mario
it
Kart
was-
64
it was
and then I had
Wii.
Mario Kart Wii.
That's
Yeah.
so fun. Me too. I never played Double Dash.
Yeah. And everybody says it's the best one, but I think that's just people my age are always going to say that
Right.
the one that
Yeah.
they played growing up is the best one.
Like
Mario
I can
Kart 8
acknowledge
Deluxe is
that
the
we
best
had
one.
some faults, but
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I miss the era of the kart racer. I remember all sorts of kart racers came out all the time for seemingly no reason.
I mean,
Remember?
there's still like Garfield Kart, Nightmare Kart. Like we still
Garfield
get
Kart
yeah,
kart
the
racing.
Bloodborne kart, which is really hilarious.
Yeah, they had to
Can't call it
rebrand as
that.
Nightmare Kart, I
yeah, we
think.
can't call it Bloodborne Kart.
Yeah.
Right.
Sony's going to knock on our door.
But yeah, that's a great pick, Mike.
Yeah,
I
not much
like,
to
totally
say
forgot about
kart games.
All right. I think I will go next with Super Mario 64.
Wow, low on
in
the
my
list.
4 slot. So I had to think about this a lot. A lot of deliberation went into putting this game here. I could have gone higher, but there are reasons as to why the other games are higher on my list. But this game had to make my top 5.
Oh, yeah.
It's inarguably probably the most important game I've played. It's kicked off my entire love affair with video games. And for the longest time, it was the only video game I owned. I mean, I was 3 at the time, so basically half my life went by only playing Mario 64.
Yeah.
But yeah, so many fond memories of this game. To this day, the only video game my parents have ever played. They used to play that with me. And
Yeah, same. My dad played not the only one he ever played with me. He played some Super NES with me as well, but Mario largely.
I've talked about Mario 64 so much on this show, so there's not really much more to say, but it opened my eyes to what video games are.
So-
And I do sometimes regret that I did not get to see the transition from 2D to 3D, which most people describe as the most magical thing they've ever seen in video games.
It wouldn't
But-
have meant anything to you at that age, though, because I did see
At
it.
that age,
I
yeah.
saw it.
Yeah.
You know, I
I
mean,
might
I
as
didn't see
well.
it in
Well,
real time, but I did start 2D and move on to 3D, and I just thought,
Yeah.
oh, we're doing 3D now. Like,
Yeah.
you're, if you'd been in your teens or something, it probably would have meant
Right.
a lot to you. But
blown your mind, yeah. But yeah, I remember playing Mario 64. I remember the day I beat the game. I beat Bowser. That's a very like core memory for me. And I never actually collected all the stars. As a kid, I just beat the games, and I don't think I 100% in a lot of games.
I didn't even beat games as a kid.
Well, yeah.
I just played them. Yeah.
But
I've gone back. My Super Mario 64 journey. So I was going to wait to tell this story, I think, to tell, because it's on my list as well, but I'll just tell it now. I bought a used copy of Super Mario 64, which had all 120 stars already found on it.
oh wow.
And it never crossed my mind as a kid to start a new save. I just like to run around the world, and like the memory I have is finding the cannon outside the castle and shooting myself up to see Yoshi and getting all the lives and everything, because I'd been dying all the time, and I was like, this is a game changer. Like, I can play the game now. And I always
funny.
would get Yoshi first, but it was an interesting way to play that game. Obviously not the intended way, and I have since gone back and properly played through the game, and I've had it on my DS and stuff, which is a little different, but still. And I sped run Super Mario 64. I do the 16 star. I have a 22-minute 16 star, which isn't that great, but fun. But yeah, when I was a little kid, it was literally just exploring the castle, and the whole thing was unlocked to me. So it really was just literally exploring. There was no locked doors or anything. But I remember like finding a new level and like finding the sand level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just walk through a wall.
And the mirror one, the Cool Mountain, no, the Blizzard, whatever, the ice level that the painting is on the other side of the mirror and you have to jump into the wall. Like that blew my mind as a kid.
No, I mean, I have to shout out the castle. I mean, the castle is one of the most iconic locations in the Mario franchise. I can vividly remember most of those rooms in that castle.
Yeah.
Most of those paintings, too. It's just a very, very memorable hub world.
I could build it from memory. I'm 100% certain.
But yeah, like you said, it's an incredible game for speedrunning, too.
Yeah.
As someone who's never really speedrun themselves, I've watched so many Super Mario 64 speedruns of all kinds, you know.
I love
and they're so entertaining
the
to watch.
16-star run, too, because it really is, like, even if you don't know what you're doing, you can learn that run in less than 2 hours. And then get your next run will probably be 40 minutes, and you'll really chop off time for those first few runs, and it just feels really good.
Yeah, the people who are really good at that game, they just blow my mind. It defies my knowledge of what you should be able to do in that game.
Yeah.
So the way they use momentum to get to places where they need to go way before they should, and in ways I don't even imagine, it's incredible.
It is probably the most free Mario's movement has ever been, too. I think I like the movement in Sunshine more, but there's no other game where you can do the side
have a
flip.
remarkably cold take that Sunshine's hub world is better than the castle.
I agree. Yeah.
But remarkably cold take. I think Sunshine's world was one of those that I traveled around a lot as a kid.
Yeah. But the movement in 64, it's the only game where you can do a side flip into a wall kick, into a dive, which is just one of the best feeling movement techs you can do in a game, I feel like. A close follow-up being the spin jumps you can do in Sunshine. That game is peak as well.
And I do think that Mario 64's movement is more momentum-based than the succeeding 3D Mario games. Is that a fib that I'm telling myself, or do you think that's true?
What do you mean?
I think the momentum carries over a lot more into your movement in Mario 64.
That is, Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine both have that. Every game after that, they pretty much drop that idea.
Yeah, I remember Mario Sunshine feeling a lot like 64 when I played it.
Mario Sunshine, you can go faster a lot easier because you can slide on water and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But your jumps just aren't as good because you don't have the long jump and stuff. But those two games had a lot of preservation of momentum, and I think Nintendo found it challenging to design platforming that it was difficult around that, so they kind of moved away. Like all of your moves in Odyssey, every move you do pretty much resets your momentum. Like your cap jumps and everything, they reset you to 0, so it's really hard to get moving in those games.
So, but man, it's just... It's Mario 64, one of the most iconic games of all time.
It's a must play. Like if you were somebody who hasn't played it, you have to at least like mess around with it in an emulator or something. It's a must play video game.
Yeah, and I just remember my imagination being so captured. Like at the time, right, that was my only video game, so I had so many questions, right? What else does Mario do? Are there more Mario games? You know, like I just didn't know anything at the time, and there was like a purity to that you can only get when you're really, really young.
The idea of jumping into a painting has also just always been fascinating to me. Like, 'cause Blue's Clues messed with that too, and
Dark Souls.
yeah. When I was a little kid, though, it was Blue's Clues and Mario doing it, and always just a very interesting idea.
Really captures the imagination.
I had no idea though. The way that I played it, like already having all the stars. That's crazy. It makes the repeat Bowser fights even more confusing. Like, why did they just put this 3 times? Although I don't think I ever got to it as a kid. I don't think I ever got to Bowser, the Lava Bowser, whatever that one's called. I never got to that. The second one. I was able to beat the first Bowser in the Dark World, and Bowser in the Sky, I remember beating that like over and over because I was so proud of myself once I could do it that I was just doing it over and over again.
Yeah, that last Bowser fight, it felt like an achievement.
Yeah.
And I remember beating him on my first try, which I don't know if a lot of people could do that, quite frankly. That's quite the achievement. Yeah, it was a happy day for me as a kid. And I've told this story on the show before, but I'm just going to briefly mention it again. I remember we were leaving to go somewhere, and my dad was like, "We have to go." And I was like, "I'm too scared to fight this. You fight him." And my dad lost all of his lives.
No.
And on the last life I tried and I beat him on the first try.
Wow.
So it's a very, very valuable memory to me.
Dude, I never understood that as a kid. People having their parents play games. I remember I had a friend who he was afraid of the truck on the first level of Sonic Adventure 2. The truck that chases you down the road, and he made his mom play that part, and it's literally an auto runner where you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, when you're a kid, you're just afraid of random nonsense. So I was afraid of that third Bowser fight, and I was also afraid of that piranha plant that's asleep in I think the second level,
like because it does just like chomp.
Yeah,
at you.
and my mom always took the controller and snuck past it for me. She always used to do that. She was good at that.
Yeah, that's sweet.
All right.
Oh, I guess I'm up next. My next one is Mario Kart 64. Had to remember where we were because Mario 64 is on my list too. Mario Kart 64 is not one I played as a kid. I actually didn't play this until... Well, I was a kid, but not like super young. I actually got this on the Virtual Console on the Wii first. And I've played it on hardware since then. But I love this game. This was my first Mario Kart that I owned.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's... I mean... Super Mario Kart on the Super NES is a good proof of concept for the idea and everything, but this is the one that really cemented everything. I love Mario Kart 64. It's still like one I would pick up right now and play. I think it has some of the best tracks. I love the way the characters look in it. I did not know this until... Like, I thought the characters were 3D in this game. They're not. They're billboarded sprites.
Mm-hmm.
They used 3D models, like similar to Donkey Kong Country. And it just looks so good for an N64 game. It's really, really fun.
Yeah, Mario Kart games are always lookers.
Yeah, I still don't understand how Mario Kart 8 looks as good as it does. I have no idea how they managed that on the Switch.
Imagine Mario Kart 9, man.
Yeah, if it ever happens.
If the Switch 2 ever comes out.
If people ever stop buying Mario Kart 8, it's still flying off the shelves.
The two ironclad rules of the games industry, people will always buy Mario Kart, and people will always buy GTA.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mario Kart 64, I remember playing this game a lot as a kid. Obviously, it was a huge game for co-op, co-op being so meaningful back in the day, how you played games with your friends. No online gaming for me at the time, so this was before I discovered MMOs and all of that. Yeah, Mario Kart 64, playing it with my sister, playing it with my friends, and I remember my mind being blown when I discovered the drift mechanic. And it was, I think I remember reading about it in a magazine or something, actually. I never actually found out for myself. But there was a magazine that was like, okay, do this to drift, move the stick back and forth while you're holding R, and then the O's turn into E's, and the E's become orange or something.
Magazines, man.
You're making a face, but when you drift in Mario Kart, there's letters.
I didn't know that.
It's very bizarre. Yeah,
is that in the new games too? That's surely not.
No, it's only Mario Kart 64. But like, you see a bunch of E's come out, and they're yellow, and then they turn orange, and then that's your max sort of drift.
Huh?
It's really weird.
This was a really cool game for me, though. Just shouting out the Wii Virtual Console, because it did kind of send me on the early retro gaming experience. I mean, I guess. God, even calling this retro. It was like 10 years old at the time, I guess. Gaming moved fast back then. But I bought the... What was it called? The classic controller for the Wii with the joysticks on it and everything. And I played a lot of Mario Kart. I do remember playing this. One of the earlier times I played it was on real hardware at a friend of my mom's house. Me and my dad were playing it on their N64 while mom and her friend made dinner. And me and my dad could not finish Choco Mountain. Like, not just couldn't get a
yeah.
good placement, but like could not finish the race.
Oh, that level is brutal. You'd fall
we
so
would
much.
fall, and then we were laughing so hard because neither of us could get past the falling boulders. This was like laughing so hard I was crying, so I couldn't see the screen.
That's great.
Yeah. I was so happy to see Chaka Mountain come back in Mario Kart 8 in the DLC.
Oh yeah, I definitely popped a bit when I saw that.
It's not as good, but it is good.
Yeah. I also want to shout out the battle mode in Mario Kart 64.
Oh my god, that skyscraper
Probably my
map.
favorite.
Yeah.
Favorite battle mode in all the Mario Karts, even to this day.
Yeah, same probably.
Love that battle mode, and I remember playing it a lot.
The battle mode in Wii was really good. It just had bigger maps and more players. That's the only reason. Yeah, the one on N64 was really good though. If you had 4 friends.
Oh yeah, and it was
friends.
pure mayhem, right? It was But I just love that they really didn't even have to make that mode. They would have had an incredible game with just the racing and the tracks.
Yeah.
But they created a new mode with new maps.
Was that new? Did Super Mario Kart not
for
have battle mode?
I don't know about Super Mario Kart, but
it does. Yeah, it does exist.
Okay, so they must have continued that idea. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So the first Mario Kart that was there since the beginning.
Yeah.
Of Mario Kart. That's crazy.
Balloon battle.
Yeah, the balloons. Shout out to the balloons. The balloons have stayed in all the battle modes, which is really cool.
Yeah, did you know there is a Mario Kart game that doesn't have a battle mode though? Mario Kart 8 on Wii U did not have it.
I remember that, and I remember being very upset.
Or did it have it and it just didn't have its own tracks?
No, there was one. I believe there was one Mario Kart game that lacked a battle mode, and I think it was the Wii U one.
Yeah, Mario Kart 8's glow up.
It's hard to remember.
Has been insane.
I mean, Mario Kart 8, the sales have just gone to the stratosphere. I think they're over 80 million or something now.
It's almost 1-to-1, like with Switch sales. It's like really.
That's not quite true because Switch has sold over 100 million units and
100. It's
Mario
like at
Kart's,
116, I think.
But the attach rate is insane.
It's insanely,
and I mean, it's Nintendo's best-selling game. Can't wait to see what they do with Mario Kart 9.
Smash.
But yeah, Mario Kart 64 was my intro to the series as well. All right, Mike.
All right, this one's gonna be a shocker, but it's Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time.
This would make it on someone's list, and I made it mine. What is there not to say about this game? Yeah, being like one of the codifier of 2 decades of Zelda games or something similar to that.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't invent the Zelda formula, but it did perfect it.
Yeah.
The Zelda formula that they would use for those games, starting with Link to the Past and through Skyward Sword.
Every single game after Ocarina of Time attempted to be Ocarina of Time because Ocarina of Time did so well.
It was also like Nintendo's first game in 3D that didn't have horrendous camera issues.
Yeah. Its camera was good for at least the time.
It worked. Yeah, it got the job done. I don't remember.
And I feel like they invented locking on. The lock-on mechanic?
The lock-on camera.
The Z lock-on? Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least in doing so in third person. I think first-person games might have done it before. But the lock-on camera that keeps the player and the enemy on screen cinematically.
Right. Cinematically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cinematic lock-on.
And it is. I mean, it's based on the Japanese sword duel play things. I forget the word for that.
So, since we're talking about Ocarina of Time, I'm going to mention this game is not on my list because I never actually played it on N64.
That's wild.
My first Zelda game was Wind Waker. And I remember after playing Wind Waker, I got the guide for it just because I loved the game.
Yeah.
I'd already beaten the game, but I got the guide. And in the back, there was this whole section on Ocarina of Time.
I have the same guide. I have that guide on my shelf right now. Yeah.
And I remember just reading it and treating it like it was the Bible or something. I thought this was the coolest thing. And they go through the whole game, right? The whole story from the beginning. They go through every dungeon. And I just remember reading it over and over again. I was like, this seems like the coolest game on earth. And I need to play this game at some point.
I had that guide and I still couldn't beat the water temple.
Yeah, all I'm going to say about Ocarina of Time is Aaron Hansen is wrong and he's just bad at games. But
I disagree. I think Aaron Hansen is wrong in saying that they ruined Zelda with it. He's right that the combat is so slow, though.
I think he has some points, but he's also like, it's just not intuitive.
He was just engagement baiting.
Yeah, I don't even think so. I think he legitimately believes these because later on he did a playthrough of the game and couldn't figure out the controls.
Yeah.
Like, it's not exactly that unintuitive of a control, especially if you're used to playing retro games.
So my first, my experience with Ocarina of Time, I actually played it on the GameCube first. I have played it. I played it on GameCube. I think I had it on the Wii Virtual Console. I had it on 3DS. And then I finally got it on the N64. And I've played through it to completion on all of those platforms.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
then I
Fantastic
come on
game.
this podcast and I'm the resident Ocarina of Time hater.
Yeah. It's I
Hey,
think,
at least you have credentials.
Yeah.
You're not faking it.
No, I love that game. I also had that guide. I had a similar experience to you, Amit. I played Wind Waker first. I think A Link to the Past was actually my first Zelda. But I played Wind Waker first. And then I got Master Quest, like Ocarina of Time Master Quest on the GameCube. It was a disc. And it's actually, I think, like super valuable now. That'd be cool if
Maybe.
I still had it. I turned it on. Or no, it wasn't even that. I did eventually get this, but my friend Reese left his at my house one time, and I went to play it, and I was like, why does this game look so terrible? Why is it so ugly? Because I was used to GameCube games I hadn't played. I didn't know it was an N64 game that was ported. It was way uglier than Wind Waker.
yeah. I like the timelessness of Ocarina of Time still stands. You still see Zelda games compared to it, which I think is wild.
Yeah.
It just shows
Yeah.
how well they ported it through and how thought out the world felt. The world felt good for that age.
It was also like a technical achievement to have
Yeah.
Hyrule Field be so big. Like
Oh,
Hyrule
yeah.
Field sucks now. It is like crazy to walk around in this big empty field with nothing in it. But
Can you imagine
1998
being of
yeah.
Being
having a thinking brain in 1998 and playing that game?
Yeah, it
Just,
had to.
yeah, just having your mind blown by the fact that you can go anywhere in that field. There's no
Well,
walls. There's
you-
no
you
linear
probably, like,
area.
You beat those 3 dungeons. You go to like square up in the castle, and then the
Yeah, you
game
probably
keeps
think the game's
going. Yeah,
over,
you
yeah.
you think it's about to
Yeah.
end. I know. I thought it was about to end. I remember
Yeah.
how I felt doing that because I was a dumb kid. I had read that guide. I didn't put two
Yeah.
and two together like that. The game was gonna keep
You
going.
might have been a little dumber than me.
Yeah,
I was a lot
as
younger than
Master
you.
Sword,
That is
and
true. Yeah.
I would have
all
been
of a
5 or
sudden,
6.
the whole world has changed. Everything's gone to the dumpster.
Oh my
Your
gosh, I
character
remember
model's
those
bigger?
The redeads.
zombies.
Yeah.
The redeads. Oh my
So
god, still make my
fire,
skin
kid.
crawl. Yeah.
No, me and my friend Christian used to play single player games through together, and we could not play. We couldn't play the Earth Temple in Wind Waker, and we couldn't play past the adult section together on Ocarina of Time
I
because he
still
was
think
so
that was
terrified of
probably,
redeads.
those are probably one of the best implementation of redeads.
I
They're
agree.
they're the most
'Cause
scary in Ocarina of Time for sure.
I think Wind Wakers were. I don't remember Wind Wakers. I didn't really.
I think
play
Wind
Waker.
Wakers are scarier. They're
Yeah,
bigger.
Wind Wakers are scary, but the most annoying ones are Twilight Princess.
Yeah,
Like Twilight
they've never been
Princess
as good
are just
after Wind
lame.
Waker, and
Yeah,
Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker nailed it, and they never really got it right.
yeah.
again,
They
in my
tried to
opinion.
iterate on it. They brought him back in Totka, but
No, those are Gibdos.
there's a Kipdos.
Yeah, they're Gibdos.
I just
What?
love that you called it Totka.
Totka.
Totka. Yeah,
Tears of the King.
Botwa and Totka.
Tears of the fandom that's so disappointed in this game.
All right. You got your engagement, Connor.
But
You can stand down.
I don't
But-
know. Timeless game.
Y-
Still,
Yeah, timeless
still
game.
A 10 out of 10.
And I just got to shout out the art direction too, especially because that book, if you remember, Connor, it had screenshots from the game,
Yeah.
but there was so much art just of the characters in like the Ocarina of Time cartoon art style.
I expected the
And
game to be a lot prettier because of that
it
art.
looked
It's so
the
good.
art to me, I mean, it's just so incredible, and it just painted this picture in my head
Yeah.
of this game. And I mean, quite frankly, it lived up to the expectations, which I mean, I think it did.
Visually,
I
I
know-
don't think it did.
No, as a game,
Everything
I mean,
else, yes, absolutely. It lived up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you play the 3DS version with like 2 exceptions, perfect adaptation of that art. It actually just looks. Have you played the 3DS remake?
Yeah, I have.
It's a
Yeah.
vastly better game, which is insane to improve on the N64 version. at all, let alone as much as they did. I love Ocarina of Time 3D. It's probably the best game on the 3DS.
Yeah, shout out to Ocarina of Time. And I love the ocarina. I mean, just what an instrument to pick. You know, it wasn't a flute, it wasn't a clarinet, it was an ocarina, kind of an unusual choice for a woodwind instrument, but here we are, right?
Yeah.
And no one knew what an ocarina was.
No, if you
game,
see an
right?
Ocarina of Time at someone's house, you do not see the instrument an ocarina. You see an Ocarina of Time reference.
Right. Yeah.
You ask them to play the Song of Storms or Zelda's Lullaby.
I just thought it was so cool that you could also kind of free play on it too.
Yeah.
You didn't necessarily have to play one of the songs.
Majora's Mask continued that, and then they kind of don't do it anymore. But I love that. I love a playable instrument in Zelda games.
They don't have instruments anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, you've got your ocarina.
Yeah.
Oh wow, nice. But yeah, for the longest time, Zelda was associated with instruments to me.
Yeah.
Because there was always this emphasis on music and music being tied into the gameplay. But yeah, it is a little sad that they kind of moved away from that.
I agree.
All right. I assume we're going to be talking about Ocarina of Time again, unless Connor made the bold choice of not.
No, it's on mine too.
Okay. All right. So
yeah.
I'll continue us for now. So my number 3 game is Pokemon Stadium.
Wow,
so this
brave
game,
inclusion.
Yeah, I love Pokemon Stadium, and I might be a little biased because I am playing more Pokemon Stadium right now, like as an adult, than I probably did as a kid, because I have a very distinct group of friends that also grew up on N64, and when we get together, we almost always, like, I've talked about Mario Tennis, right? We play Mario Tennis, and we always play Pokemon Stadium.
Yeah.
And it's a blast. Not only are the actual fights a blast, because you have the hype announcer and all of that, and you have the, at the time, kind of, whoa, revolutionary. You're looking at these Pokemon in 3D.
Yeah.
And you're looking at these animations in 3D. This is what a next-gen sort of experience.
And they continued to use these models for a very long time.
Yeah, for forever.
They were still using them on the Wii.
But not only did we have the arena mode, which I spent most of my time in, I love the little minigame mode too, where you do these little competitive minigames with your friends. And, sorry, my throat's acting up today. Games like the Metapod Kakuna hardening game and the Lickitung sushi game. The, the Scyther one I think was in Pokemon Stadium too. But these minigames, I mean, they were kind of like a palate cleanser after you spent, however long in the arena battling it out. You could engage in these fun little mini games and have fun with that too. And I would be remiss if I did not point out, playing Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow on your N64 through the pack.
Right, which
controller.
was just a Game Boy emulator. You could technically play, I think, any Game Boy game, but they for some reason limited it so that you could only play Pokemon.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the time, that was such a huge deal to me too, because obviously Pokemon love playing it handheld, but seeing it on the big screen, even it being pixelated 2D art, it was really cool. And it felt like a game changer at the time.
I never had Stadium, but I was a huge fan of Pokemon Battle Revolution on the Wii, which was the same idea, just later, more refined, I would say. But same graphics, same exact 3D models for all the old Pokemon.
Yeah. And obviously Generation 1 is a little wonky.
Yeah.
Very strange interactions, very strange moves, Pokemon no moves that they probably shouldn't know. And all of that kind of made Pokemon Stadium, I don't know, there's no other Pokemon arena game like Pokemon Stadium due to the nature of Gen 1. You have these Pokemon fights that were kind of out of pocket. Someone gets frozen solid and they're just stuck that way for the rest of the fight.
Yeah.
So you could like buff up or whatever. And it's really funny. Sometimes me and my friends, just to troll each other, if one of us gets frozen solid, the other one basically just starts taunting and showboating, right? Using all your moves that you can before you actually get the kill, just to rub it in your face. But
I'd be fuming.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like a 10% chance to freeze So it's a pretty low chance.
Yeah.
But obviously, I don't know. I feel like some of the code in that game has to be buggy because
Oh, it's
there have been
horrendous. Yeah.
there have been moments where I've been confused, and apparently it's a coin flip, right? 50% you attack, 50% you get hit. But I've hit myself, 7-8 times in a row and just died. It seems unlikely that would happen, but I guess it is possible. But yeah, a lot of fun memories with Pokemon Stadium. Did either of you guys? I know, Mike. Did you play it?
Play Pokemon Stadium 1?
Yeah.
Yeah. Only a little bit. I didn't really play it in depth. I was a stupid kid, but I did play it a little.
I mean, I was a stupid kid too, right? I did 3 things, right? I fought with my friends in the arena. I played Pokemon Red on it.
Yeah.
And I played those mini games. That's it. I know there's more stuff to do in the game, but I, quite frankly, even today, I don't even know what that stuff is because I never bothered to check.
I mean, it's a timeless game because even Pokemon Coliseum, probably half my time playing it was just doing Pokemon battles with Gen 3 with a friend on the big screen.
What a game, man. Pokemon Coliseum, or not, Pokemon, Coliseum, right?
The music in Coliseum is
incredible game.
Ridiculously good.
One of the best Pokemon games still, in my mind.
It's apparently one of the hardest, which makes I never beat it. It is really hard, especially since there are so many missable Pokemon that you just can't go back for.
I 100% of Pokemon Coliseum, but not the sequel.
Yeah, the sequel it didn't really draw me in.
Barely played the sequel, but anyway, yeah, Pokemon Stadium, and I would kill for a modern Pokemon Stadium. I feel like they just don't do that kind of game anymore.
It's a pointless game to make.
It is a bit pointless, right?
Like,
but
we have the new Pokemon game is in 3D. They can't
do it in 3D.
They obviously cannot do any better.
They can't. No.
So
you're right.
You're not getting. Well, Pokemon Stadium is not made by Pokemon Company, I don't think. Neither is Coliseum. That was a Gecko. Is that right? I don't remember. It was a different studio, which explains a lot about the quality.
Right, explains a lot.
Yeah.
It was actually good. Okay. Connor, what's your next game?
I don't have a ton to say about this one, but this is my number 3, and it's Star Fox 64. I feel like if you're doing
respectable pick,
doing a top list of N64, this game has to make it. They still have not successfully recreated this game. I think it's probably the best on-rail shooter ever made. They just keep remaking it because for some reason, nobody seems to be able to do it again. I love it. It had voice acting, which is crazy. It's essentially a remake of Star Fox 1 with some ideas from the unreleased at the time Star Fox 2, which was not released at all until like 2018 for some reason. But it's just really fun. Visuals hold up today. You get to know the characters in a way that you didn't really get to in games back then very often. Peppy and Falco and the rabbit.
Do a barrel.
I don't remember his name. Yeah, the do a barrel roll rabbit whose name...
Peppy.
No, that was Peppy.
Peppy is
Slippy's
the frog.
Slippy's
the frog.
Peppy's the rabbit, yeah. And like Star Wolf shows up every once in a while to ruin your day. And they're like weird secret exits to the level. So this game's insanely replayable. I've played through it a million times. There are levels where you play as a tank. There are levels where it's not an on-rail shooter. They're like all range mode, I think is what it was called at the time. And it's just a level where you're flying around doing an arena combat kind of thing. Just a really fun game that has been beaten to death since then.
Wild story coming from me again. Never owned Star Fox 64. Played it at friends' houses. My first Star Fox game was Star Fox Adventures. And I played it and I thought Star Fox was the greatest thing ever. And when I played N64,
because you were playing a Zelda
Star
game.
Fox, I thought it was pure garbage because it wasn't like adventure.
Because it wasn't a Zelda game.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Hilarious, right?
Did you know, this is like insanity. Apparently in Star Fox 64, as 100% reward, you can unlock the ability in the multiplayer to play as all the characters on foot. In the multiplayer.
What?
Yeah, there's like a whole shooter that you can unlock where you're on foot fighting each other.
That's bonkers.
Yeah.
I love stuff like that, man.
I can do one better. Did you know that canonically in Star Fox, all of the animals have their legs cut off? They're all amputees because of the G-forces in the ship. They need less blood in their body, so they chop their legs off at the knee. That's that's why all the Star
metal.
Fox characters have robot legs in Smash Bros.
I don't know if you're.
I'm
like,
not doing a
meaning or
bit.
not.
This is 100% real. Like, because I was
real?
telling, and I know this is real because I was telling this story the other day, and I was saying it, and I heard it out of my mouth, and I was like, that can't be real, and I looked it up, and it's real. The Star Fox characters are canonically amputees to help them fly the ship faster.
Sure, whatever. That works.
What is stupid? Like, why?
Also, shout outs to Andros. I always thought Andros was a really cool.
Weird villain.
Boss villain.
Why
Yeah.
is he just a fly? Like, it
A
made
floating
sense on
monkey
the
head?
Super NES because they couldn't do much else. But on the N64, why is his ship a floating head?
Oh, I thought he was the floating head.
No,
That's a ship.
No, that's a ship. Yeah, it's a giant
What?
robot. Yeah. No, he is a monkey the same size as everyone else. He is a dude.
Did they chop
The
his
ship-
legs off?
Because the ship is a robot. After you shoot at it, if you shoot it in the eye a bunch, it turns like the skin comes off and it's a big robot,
Huh.
which is horrifying. Nightmare fuel for a child.
I remember playing the final boss of Star Fox Adventures a lot, and it was Andros, obviously. But I don't remember the robot part. Maybe I just blocked that out of my memory.
I don't know if it was in there. It is in in Star Fox 64 though. It is definitely a robot. God,
Man, yeah.
the music
I really
too.
would like for Nintendo to do more with Star Fox. I mean, they don't really do much with Fox anymore.
Yeah, that's because they keep messing it up really bad. Like they
Well, they keep trying to do different things, remember?
Yeah,
So,
Star Fox Zero was
yeah,
terrible on the
Star Fox
Wii U.
64, and then Adventures, and then Star Fox Assault on GameCube. Remember that game?
Yeah, and that was trying to be a return to form of 64, just with some variety.
Well, there was a
thrown
lot.
in.
Yeah, there was a lot of on foot sections, right?
Yeah.
It was almost
And that's
a
what
shooter.
Well, the on foot sections in that were the same as the on foot stuff in 64.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I remember playing Star Fox Assault a lot as a kid. We used to play that, the multiplayer for that all the time.
Yeah. Then there was a remake of 64 on the 3DS. Because of course there was.
Yeah, 3DS was really just N64 too.
Yeah.
But yeah, good shout. Star Fox should be on this list.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, Mike.
Where am I at my list? Next one I'm going to talk about is Banjo Tooie.
Banjo Tooie.
Tooie
oh,
over
man.
Banjo.
Yeah, I didn't play the original.
Really?
Kazooie.
Okay.
Yeah. I played Tooie, and Tooie, it's one of those collectathons that's really good. I don't know if it's aged well. I haven't touched it since I was a kid.
Yeah.
But
I always hear that it doesn't age well, and like you, I haven't touched it too much since I was a kid. I have tried it once or twice, but yeah, Banjo Tooie is a very special game to me as well.
Yeah, that's a rare collectathon, but each of those worlds were beautiful. Like I remember enjoying the factory level. I remember not enjoying the factory level and hating it, and hating going inside and hating the security cameras. The dinosaur level was always fun.
I remember distinctly the circus level.
Oh,
when
Witchy
you
Wood
fought
or
the
whatever?
giant balloon.
Oh yeah, I remember the circus as well.
Yeah, Witchy World. Wow, yeah. The first level was pretty iconic too. I forget what it was called though.
Mayan Mayhem or something.
Yeah, the levels are much harder to remember in Banjo Tooie.
Yeah,
because I mean, like you said, they were huge. They were really big. Probably too big.
There was the Mayan level first, and then there was Witchy World. There was like one in between them. I don't remember. Pterodactyl Land, Grunty Industries.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I'm gonna look.
But yeah, I remember being blown away by the fact that Banjo and Kazooie could separate in this game.
How did we forget about Glitter Gulch Mine?
Glitter Gulch. Oh yeah, that one is iconic.
Hailfire Peaks is super iconic too. So is Jolly
Dude, remember
Roger's Lagoon.
the Doom-esque FPS segments in
where you
in the
got
Gulch?
the ability from Jam Jar.
Yeah.
There were several of these Doom-esque FPS segments.
That was just a
I
trend.
remember.
That was in Spyro 3 as well.
But yeah, your eggs turned into grenades. I love the fact that they took all the abilities from the first game and kind of expanded on them and then added new stuff. Like the eggs that Kazooie shoots could be fire eggs or ice eggs or literal grenades.
Yeah, and then you can get the Dragon Kazooie upgrade if you know what you're doing fairly decently early into the game. And you get infinite, I think, fire eggs. And
I don't remember Dragon Kazooie.
Yeah,
it has been a long
you
time.
get like the ice key or whatever, or you can get like an egg to get Dragon Kazooie, and she would gain like a fire breath from her backpack attack, if I remember correctly. Very fun game.
Yeah, I remember having a lot of fun with the new moves. The new moves always, to me, in those games, they were so much fun, and it would open up the game in new ways.
And having the train was fun with the big coal boss.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Banjo Tooie is actually the first Banjo game I beat, because I own Banjo Kazooie, but I beat Tooie before Kazooie, and I remember it being quite a difficult game to beat.
Yeah, Grunty Industries is one of those worlds that kind of sucked.
Yeah, man. Grunty Industries, I don't remember too well, but I do remember that final boss, how Grunty was in that robot or whatever.
Yeah, and then the Tower of Tragedy quiz, the quiz show.
Yeah, you can't have a Banjo-Kazooie game without a quiz show for some reason.
Having Humble Wumba transformations were also nice, because it gave Mumbo his own gameplay.
Could you play as Mumbo Jumbo?
Yeah, you
can
play as Mumbo in this game.
Yeah,
this is the one where Mumbo had like his spells where he'd do his little chant, and then
I remember. Wow, you're bringing back a lot of memories.
Summon something, or for Jolly's Roger Lagoon, he just oxygenates with the water so you can swim.
Oh my gosh, yeah! And at the beginning of this game, Jamjar dies, which is kind of crazy.
Or, Bottles dies. They just kill
Bottles.
him. They kill him off.
Who's Jamjar? Why did I say that?
Jamjar is his military cousin.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, his military cousin.
His drill sergeant cousin.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Bottles dies, becomes a ghost for the entire game.
He's a military drill sergeant, and Bottles' brother.
Yes. And he teaches you the moves in the game.
Yeah.
I always thought that was weird. I like Bottles died.
Klungo's in this, and
there was multiple Klungo fights, right?
Yeah, there's 3,
and they changed as the game progressed.
Grunty's sisters.
Oh yeah,
and all the Jinjos are dead.
Yeah, things got kind of dark in Banjo Tooie.
Yeah, they killed King Jinjo. They turned him into a zombie.
You guys are saying so many words.
I
did not play
dark,
Banjo Tooie,
but at the same time, it never veers into like the edgy territory. It's still humorously dark.
It still keeps its kind of whimsical tone. But I distinctly remember fighting that last boss, it being very difficult. And I remember my friend's older brother. This is a very weird core memory for me. But my friend's older brother, he was like several years older, who we didn't really talk to, right? Because, you know, what are you going to do talking to someone who's, I don't know, 5-6 years older than you?
Yeah.
But he called my house and asked to talk to me for advice on how to beat Grunty at the end of Banjo Tooie. And I always thought that was so strange, right? Because we didn't really have internet, Google. That wasn't really a thing we used too much.
Wait, was he older or you were older?
He was older. He was like 5 or 6 years older. I had a very similar
experience with an MMO as a kid.
Yeah, but he called me. He was like, hey, how do you beat Grunty? And I was like, oh. And I was just like, this is what you do. And like, I explained it. Because I remember there was a weird, do you remember, Mike, the mechanic? There was some weird mechanic with Grunty at the end that made her very difficult unless you had a certain item. But I don't remember the details.
I remember there was the poison gas.
Poison gas, yeah. Your health would just constantly go down. And there was an item that you could get that would mitigate that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to get the Royston bubbles. So if you didn't have 10 oxygen bubbles, it'd be harder.
Yeah. So many memories with this game. And I remember how I got it too, which was unusual, where I was a kid, right? So please keep that in mind when I tell this story. But I think
you
for my
stole it, huh?
No, nothing like that. But for my first birthday party, right? I invited my best friends, I invited a bunch of friends over. And my friends, one of them asked me, hey, what do you want for your birthday? And I, being a kid who didn't really think about consequences, was, oh, I want Banjo Tooie. And so the kid goes back and tells their parents, and obviously Banjo Tooie is like a
full-price video game.
Full-price video game. So their family had to have a serious sit-down discussion of like, do we buy this game for him? And they ended up doing it, but obviously I didn't appreciate the decision at the time.
No.
I was just this kid who wanted this video game, but it caused this whole kind of
How
serious
strange.
discussion
Yeah, they
at
should have
this
just
family.
not got it for you.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess they were afraid of then I didn't get it. I would be sad, but I know I would have gotten over it. I'm a kid.
Yeah, you'd have been
But
over it 20 minutes later.
but yeah, I remember unwrapping that game and just freaking out at my birthday party. And I it's strange, right? You remember these snippets from so long ago. This was literally my first grade birthday party.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember that. And that same family, right? By the way, that same family who got me Banjo Tooie, their oldest son is the one who called me asking for advice on how to beat Gruntilda
That's
at the
so
end of the
funny.
game. So yeah,
So
I
that was an
pretty close-
investment.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But I was pretty close with them back in the day. Obviously, we don't talk anymore. But yeah, a lot of memories associated with Banjo Kazooie, Banjo Tooie. That's a really good shout, Mike. I really, really debated putting Tooie on my list, but I ended up not doing it.
I had to leave it on there. It was one of those games that I played as a kid. And
They
well,
don't
it
hold
scared me as a kid. But
Yeah,
But-
you basically just live most of your childhood in fear, don't you? Like that's just a thing.
That's
yeah,
just
you're
not relatable to
you're
me at
just
all.
Scared to play games.
That was
I was
not an
scared of so
experience.
many things. I was scared of the dark. I was terrified of all sorts of things.
I was fearless as a kid. I just didn't really. I was afraid of small
Yeah.
spaces. I had claustrophobia, and that was like it.
Oh, I guess I never had claustrophobia, but
Yeah. No.
but anyway,
I don't remember being scared of video games like at all. That's just a weird. It's weird.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Kids are weird, dude.
Yeah. I wasn't afraid of the dark until my cousin told me I should be.
Kids are so stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, number 2. We're getting up there now. Paper Mario.
I was wondering if this
Paper
would
Mo-
make the list. Yeah.
Paper Mario is my number 2. Love Paper Mario to death. Paper Mario is still the single game in the franchise I've replayed the most.
Really?
Way more than Thousand Year Door.
Really?
That
Is it
first
shorter?
Paper Mario, yeah, it's way shorter.
Okay.
But that first Paper Mario, I played so much as a kid, and I've even revisited it as an adult. I've emulated it. I've played it all sorts of ways, and it's just such a wonderful game. It holds up. The charm, the humor. Like, I don't know what it is about Mario RPGs, but they're all so charming and funny.
The old ones.
Yeah, the old ones.
I played this on the Wii. This was another virtual console get for me that I had no idea. I didn't know it existed until I saw it on the virtual console. Didn't get very far in it though.
Yeah, but this was my first exposure, I think, to an RPG. I can't remember if I played this before Pokemon or not.
Wow.
So-
yeah,
So it was either
definitely-
this or Pokemon Red.
wow.
I can't remember. But yeah, Super Mario 64, I just remember thinking, like, what is this? Because Mario's supposed to be a game where you jump and run around and platform and stuff. So this was Mario again, but completely different. Could
Yeah.
not be more different. And I just thought that it was so cool that this character Mario could do so many things,
Yeah. And this was
But-
before they were doing like the dumb paper gimmick stuff. I say
Yes.
dumb. It's not
It's
detrimental
cute.
to the game, but
It's overplayed, I
it
think.
doesn't need it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, this was just a tried and true RPG. Obviously, there was some paper jokes in there, right? When Mario fell from a large height, he just sort of like float down like a piece of paper.
Right.
Cute stuff like that. But also, I thought it was really cool that he got a hammer. That was a
Oh yeah.
unique
that was
thing
new.
that
yeah.
Mario had a weapon and it was a hammer.
Yeah. That became a
And,
staple.
became a staple. And gosh, I remember thinking the kind of the active battle system where you'd have to like press A when you jump, like right when you land, or hold the hammer back and then release it at the right time. I thought that was really cool, and it felt like you were more of an active participant in the fights.
I still think it's really good as
It's a neat innovation
Yeah.
on turn-based RPGs.
because I'm
Yeah.
a turn-based combat hater largely, and I do not hate Paper Mario or Mario and Luigi, which also does a similar thing.
Yeah. And gosh, yeah, we're getting a Mario and Luigi game very soon, and I'm very excited about that.
Brothership.
I don't know if that's a word, but
It's
yeah,
for sure not. That's what the game's called.
it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's
It's a weird.
it's weird.
word.
They could have called it Brotherhood.
Yeah.
No,
No, that's taken by Assassin's Creed.
and Full Metal Alchemist, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, Paper Mario, and I remember the collectathon part of it, where you were going around at the end of each level, you'd collect one of these sacred stars. And these were stars that could talk and stuff, and they would give you different powers. And by the end of the game, you had all 8 of the sacred stars, and you felt like a god. You could do all sorts of crazy powers.
Never made it that far. Never got one.
Yeah, you never even got
Never
one.
got one.
So you didn't even play.
Well, again,
for like,
this was like I got it on Virtual Console on the Wii for like $5 probably, and it was just kind of a novelty. Like I played it for a little bit, and I was like, "Oh, this is a cool old video game," and then I dropped it.
Right? Yeah. But me as a kid, right? Like I was gobbling up all the systems. I thought the cooking was so cool when you finally meet Zest, which is her name, Zest.
Yeah.
And you get the ability. There's like this cookbook, right? And you can combine different foods, but you don't know what the foods will turn into. And if it's not a valid combination, it'll just turn into like garbage, basically.
Wow.
But
Really?
you try different things that would make sense, right? So if you give her honey and a mushroom, you'd get honey baked mushrooms or something like that.
Really chewing on Breath of the
As a
Wild's
food.
flavor there.
Right? Yeah.
Kind of a ripoff.
Yeah. No original
20
ideas.
years sooner.
But yeah, so she would make these foods for you, and these foods would have, restorative effects, combat effects, that sort of thing. And again, I just thought that was really cool, and like this fun little meta game within the game where I'd get a new ingredient and have to think, okay, what could this go with to make a food? And I'd bring it to her, and when it worked, I was like really happy. So yeah, Paper Mario. And also the companions. I got to shout out the companions. The companion system, so good. You collect this small army over the course of the game. And I mean, you saw it, right, Connor? And did you play, you played Thousand Year Door, right?
Nope.
No? Okay.
I did.
I've seen all of Thousand Year Door, though.
Yeah. Okay, Mike, you did. But so you basically, you go to a new level. There's a story presented there. There's a new character you recruit. They come with you. And then you beat the boss, you move on, save the star, and move on to the next level, and rinse, repeat. That's the kind of Paper Mario formula. Not unlike something like One Piece, right? Where you get a straw hat and you save the country and move to the next island. But yeah, that formula was very appealing to me as a kid, because all these characters were really well realized, had really good, distinct personalities. I remember Goombario, the OG. Just a Goomba with like a blue baseball cap.
Yeah.
And
I did get to him.
Yeah, he's the first one, right? But yeah, collecting all the companions, going through the game with them, and then beating the last boss, which was Bowser, right? But I think he uses the power of the Star Rod or something, which is like a MacGuffin that gives him a lot of power or whatever. Yeah, I just thought it was a really well executed RPG. One of my first introductions to that genre, and still a game I hold in really, really high esteem. So that's Paper Mario. What's your number 2, Connor?
Super Mario 64. We pretty much already said everything about it.
So yeah, your top 2 are pretty obvious here.
Yeah. Super Mario 64 is a good game. I loved it. I had all the stars as a kid, so I was like an adult by the time I played through the game normally. But obviously, it's like it and the N64 were designed in tandem. It feels perfectly at home there. It is the grandfather of all 3D platformers. It's amazing.
Well said.
Mike?
Well,
Mike, what's your number 2?
My number 2, or my another game from the N64 era?
Right.
It's going to sound wild, but it's a game called, what was it called? Beetle Adventure Racing?
I was just looking at a list of top N64 games, and that came up. I've never heard of it.
Forgot about it. I had forgotten. But
I have no idea what this is.
Put it into perspective, it's a racing game that was designed by Volkswagen to advertise their new Beetle that they released that year. But it was
I thought it was going to be Beatles.
Yeah, it was a really,
I also thought it was going to be Beatles.
It was a really cool racing game because there was this like a second level after the first one where you're racing this German countryside or whatever, where you race through this tropical island, right? And there's dinosaurs on it.
As they do.
Yeah, there's dinosaurs here, and there are you come back to the village you start with, and it's on fire, and the volcanoes erupted, and everything's on fire. You're racing through it. That's about all I remember about it, actually. I should play it on stream at some point.
IGN says it's the 21st best N64 game.
Yeah, it's the levels are beautiful.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what, yeah.
You just describing it to me, I'm like, how do they make all this convincing on an N64?
It was Paradigm. It was it was EA Canada and Paradigm, the people that made Pilot Wings 64.
Yeah.
So pretty strong
EA,
development pedigree.
Very strong
Yeah.
development pedigree. There was just a licensed game that was good.
Yeah, that used to happen
Surprising.
sometimes.
Yeah, we got good licensed games at some point.
This really sounds like your description, Mike, just reminded me of like an arcade game I used to play. I don't know if it's probably not that, but am I wrong in saying that? What Mike described sounds like very much like an arcade racer.
Not familiar to me at all. I don't go to arcades much though.
Neither do I.
it certainly felt like an arcade racer. It wasn't a serious game. There were power ups and all this dumb stuff like nitro crates and point crates.
All the stuff you're looking for in a Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
So 2 racing games in your top 5, huh, Mike?
Yeah, I played a lot of racing games as a kid, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't have a lot of flight sims on the N64.
Yeah, there weren't any flight sims. Oops.
They hadn't figured out flight back in the day.
Is just
well, there was Pilot Wings.
Racing games.
There was Superman 64 if you wanted that sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a flight sim. Yep.
All right, Ammon.
Okay, so I guess we're at that point, right, where we reveal our number 1 games. So I do want us to go around and go through some honorable mentions. I have to shout out Mario Party 3. Specifically Mario Party 3 because I didn't own 1 and 2. but I did own 3 and it was a lot of fun, and I remember that being my first exposure to Mario Party. And I mean, I still love Mario Party to this day. And all of that really started with Mario Party 3. So shout out to Mario Party 3. And also, Mario Party 3 had the stars from Paper Mario in it. So I thought that was a really cool connection to Paper Mario.
I didn't know that. That's neat.
The 8 Elder Stars or whatever they were called.
Yeah. I knew that the stars were in Mario Party 3. I didn't know they were the same.
Shout out to A Bug's Life.
Oh my god.
Bug's Life was a movie I loved as a kid, and I got the game. The game was kind of bad.
Yeah.
Probably very bad, but shout outs to it regardless because I played it a lot. And I thought it was the most difficult game I've ever played in my life. It was so hard. I never even got close to beating it, but I wanted to mention it here. Kirby and the Crystal Shards. I love Kirby and the Crystal Shards.
Very brave to make a 2D game on the N64.
But it worked.
Yeah.
And I love the combining of the powers in that game. I thought it worked so well. And it hurt me not to put this on my top 5, but I had to leave it off. But shout out to Kirby and the Crystal Shards. Introduced me to Kirby, and I think it really hasn't been matched since the latest Kirby game on Switch, Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
Really? I don't agree with that at all.
I also don't play many Kirby games, so I could just be wrong.
Gotta play Planet Robobot, dude. That game beats the tar out of every other Kirby game. It's so
really
good.
Okay.
Oh my god. That not beats the tar out of most Kirby games are pretty good, but Robobot is probably the best one so far.
Massive shout out to Mario Tennis, a game that I still play. I'm probably play more Mario Tennis in 2024 than any other individual on the planet. I'm still out here playing Mario Tennis in a semi-competitive kind of way.
Yeah.
I don't actually compete, but what I'm saying is I get very sweaty when I'm playing Mario Tennis. So shout outs to Mario Tennis. I've talked about it before on the show. Shout outs to Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised this is not made
it's not that
any
good.
of our lists.
It's not very good, compared to any other Smash
It really is
game.
the first Smash game, right? And it has to get a lot of credit for that, but every Smash game following it, including Brawl, right, are just massive improvements.
I would say that to the point, not just is it the first Smash Bros. Game, but a lot of the weaknesses in Smash Ultimate you can trace back to stuff they really just can't change because it got locked in this first game. Like weird movesets that have nothing to do with the character, like Captain Falcon.
I see.
And Fox.
Yeah, Captain.
Yeah.
Well, Captain Falcon, I guess they just had to come up with a melee moveset for him because he was a racer or whatever.
If not for Smash 64, Captain Falcon would not be in Smash Bros. Like,
oh yeah,
he's not a relevant character.
Yeah, but but now he's one of the veterans.
Yeah,
so
they can't remove him.
without
Yeah.
fail in every Smash game, which is funny.
Yeah, like, there's just a lot of stuff hanging on because of that first one.
But yeah, I absolutely think it's worth mentioning, though, as an honorable mention. And my final honorable mention, the game you hate, Connor, is Yoshi's Story.
I hate that game. It's not just me that hates that game. That game is just hated.
I know
it's such a poor follow-up to Yoshi's Island.
I'll admit it's not a very good game, but again, my first exposure to Yoshi, and I love Yoshi. I thought Yoshi was an incredible character.
It's so messed up that your first exposure to Yoshi is not like the Super NES. That sucks so bad. It's not even Yoshi. It's not the Yoshi in that game. You're playing as like the 5 baby Yoshis because all the adult Yoshis are sad for some reason. Do you remember the story to this game?
I remember nothing.
The story to this game is that like the happiness flower is wilted or something because of something Bowser did, and the 5 baby Yoshis have to make it better by playing and eating fruit and having fun. That's the story of the game.
Hilarious.
It's so bad. It's so boring. It's such a boring story.
Yeah, I just remember the only things I remember are the music. And when you brought up the sunshine or whatever, now I get the picture of the sun as well. And the fruit. Yeah, I remember that
fruit.
stuff.
Yeah, it was like a collection kind of game in 2D. And I remember renting it as a kid. I think I rented this and Super Mario 64. I was on vacation in Park City, Utah, the first time I played the N64, and we had Super Mario 64 and Yoshi's Story. And I had played Yoshi's Island before. I was familiar with that, which is a fun game. And I thought it was the same because I'm a kid. It didn't occur to me that they were different consoles. And so I started playing Yoshi's Story because I was like, yeah, Yoshi's Island is so fun. And I played it and I was like, this sucks. This is so boring.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to rank my honorable mentions, it'd probably be at the bottom along with Bug's Life.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that though, I have talked about every single N64 game I owned as a kid. So there you go.
My honorable mention that I can't believe you didn't bring up is Pokemon Snap.
Pokemon Snap I never actually played.
It's pretty fun. I did play it. I played it on the Wii. And I guess I'll just go through the N64 games I own. I have an SSX game that I don't remember the subtitle, but it's a snowboarding game. I have no idea how I got that or why, because it's not something I would have ever picked out as a child. I have a copy of Asteroids on the N64 because my dad is obsessed with that game, and it's perhaps the laziest port of all time. It is like a static JPEG image of space. With like static sprites rotating, because the N64 was one of the earlier consoles that could just rotate sprites without really worrying about it. And so you have really lazy rotating asteroid images floating towards a really lazy rotating spaceship image. It's just, they phoned it in so insanely hard. It's so bad. I hope my dad didn't pay much for it. That's it. That's all my N64
Mike,
games.
do you have any honorable mention?
I don't have any honorable mention. I think I had a better time, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't have really anything honorable mention wise. Like, we've already covered the entire.
We've covered a lot.
We've covered more than all the good games. Well, no, I mean, there are good games we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about GoldenEye. We didn't talk about Perfect Dark.
We are going to get eviscerated for not talking about GoldenEye.
Yeah, I'm not going to get eviscerated. Yeah. I didn't play it as a kid. Yeah, obviously,
I didn't either.
It was a pretty mature game, arguably. Yeah. So GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, you got to throw those in. We didn't talk about Banjo Kazooie 1, did we? Or where was that on your list, Ahmed?
Well, it's funny you bring that up because Banjo Kazooie is my number one N64 game.
That's surprising to me. I don't like this game.
I love Banjo Kazooie. I always have. I always will. And especially the first one, I feel like is way more replayable than the second one and holds up much better than the second one.
It's such a hard game to go to as an adult, though.
I can see that. Honestly, I can see that. But Banjo-Kazooie, and it broke my heart when Microsoft got Rare, because at the end of Banjo Tooie, they very clearly mentioned Banjo 3E, and then obviously it just never happened. I remember
It did.
back in the day, it did in a way it did, but there was no game called Banjo 3E.
There's no game called Banjo 3. Did you play the Game Boy Advance games?
I did not actually.
I don't think they're very good.
Banjo Kazooie though, this is another case where before this game came out, I owned this VHS. And I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but there was this VHS that basically previews every level in the game.
Oh my
with this,
god.
like,
I haven't heard this. I didn't know that was a thing.
with this really excited, like, 90s style narration going over it, like just hyping it up. And it was, I remember watching that VHS
I gotta
on
find this
repeat,
on YouTube.
waiting for this game to come out. I was like, this is going to be the greatest game ever made. And as a kid, you have two things you watch, and you just watch them over and over again because you're psychotic or whatever. But yeah, watch that VHS a lot. Did you find it, Connor?
Oh yeah. It was a
awesome.
Toys R Us promo VHS.
I might watch that after this.
Yeah, I'll
Oh my
put it in the
God.
Discord.
Wow. Dude, you can find anything nowadays. That's crazy. But yeah, that VHS really hyped up Banjo Kazooie, and I played it and I loved it. And a lot of it was probably colored by that VHS because let me tell you, like that VHS, I encourage you to watch at least pieces of it. It really kind of gasses up Banjo Kazooie. But playing the game itself, right? This, to me, at the time was another evolution over something like Mario 64. And obviously, it's naive to see it that way now. But as a kid, that's what I thought. Where I was like, okay, this is a game where you do platforming like Mario 64, but wow, you have powers. And the levels are so much cooler and bigger and more colorful. And it just, for all those reasons, it just really kind of cemented itself in my brain.
That's exactly how I felt playing Spyro.
Yeah.
Very
yeah.
similar games. And yeah, bigger, flashier, more variety.
Yeah, I just love the powers, like I love the fact that you would explore these levels and each level to have like anywhere I think between 2 to 3, maybe even 4 moves to learn on them.
Yeah.
And these moves would kind of change how you interact with the world, right? So, and some of them in pretty big ways, right? You learn flight on the second level, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, there are these flight pads all over the place. I can straight up just fly now by using my red feathers. And that was really cool. And then you learn attacks while flying and that sort of thing. So there's just this natural progression of skills and abilities that you learn that flesh out the gameplay the more you play. And but the biggest thing to me for Banjo Kazooie has to be the levels. I freaking love these levels to death. And the levels and the music together just, oh my gosh, they're so perfect in my head. The music is so iconic to me. Grant Kirkhope's score for Banjo Kazooie. And to this day, I can remember a lot of the themes pretty distinctly. I can remember the little jingle that plays when you get a Jiggy. And yeah, man, I just find it a profoundly special game. I see Connor like nodding.
Oh,
his head
I remember
here.
all these sounds and music too.
Yeah. And
it's
obviously,
but not in a
like
good way. It's
the dialogue, right? They're all like grunts and
I hate
squeaks
that,
and
dude.
stuff.
That's so annoying when you're
As a kid-
25 years old and trying to play this game.
As a kid, I loved it, and as a result of that, I love it today.
You'll never
I
be
bet
able to
if
look at it with fresh eyes.
Yeah, I bet if I like was just introduced to this and
It's so annoying.
was hearing all the squeaks and grunts, I'd be pretty angry. But
Not angry. It's
Yeah.
just like vaguely
Annoyed.
annoying, and it's on all the time. It's every 3 seconds. Go, huh? Like,
right, that was a pretty good impression, actually.
Thank
That
you.
was pretty good. But yeah, man, just so many fond memories. I remember the crab in the second level, and you beat him, and you go inside his shell and get a Jiggy there. Click Clock Woods, the final level of the game, I just thought was so cool how it rotated between the 4 seasons, and on a different season
That
you might
does
be able
sound
to
cool.
access a Jiggy that was previously inaccessible in a different season.
And it was cool that the game doesn't kick you out in between jiggies the way that Super Mario 64 did. That was the default in my mind for N64. As it turns out, they just didn't have to do that.
They didn't have to do that, yeah.
So it
Well,
kind of
Mario
it feels
64,
more.
sometimes they altered the level a bit
Yeah.
for a star, right? So
But Banjo feels more Odyssey than 64, which is wild for how old it is. I will give it that compliment.
yeah. But yeah, Gobi Desert, Freeze Easy Peaks, Clank's Ship, or whatever the ship level was. I forget what that was. That was probably my least favorite.
I didn't like it either. Yeah,
with like the robot ship.
that was
or
the
whatever.
last level I played. Was
Okay, yeah, that's probably my least favorite level in the game.
Yeah,
But oh my gosh, the Haunted Mansion level too. Love that. Just so many iconic levels in this game. And it is my favorite Nintendo 64 game. So there you go.
I have no thunder for my favorite N64 game. It's Ocarina of Time.
Reasonable
I
pick.
Stole
Yeah.
it. Oops.
Yeah, and we talked about it at number 4, I think.
Number 4
Which is
for me,
any-
but
Yeah, which I know weren't in order, but it just what a game! Like definitely deserving of a number 1 slot
yeah,
for the N64.
like as much as Majora's Mask did everything that Ocarina did better, the Ocarina gets the title because it did it first.
It's also just not weird in the way that Majora's Mask is. Like if I'm going to go back and I want to play a Zelda game, I mean, even just when I think of a Zelda game, Ocarina of Time is the one I think
Yeah.
of.
I mean,
Every
it's just
time. It's the default
it's a
Zelda.
front to back classic Zelda adventure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it only has
I mean, you
one
can't-
weak dungeon,
Yeah.
and that dungeon is fixed in the 3DS version mostly
I
because it's
think
only weak because of the controls.
there's only really like Ocarina of Time starts off really slow because the first 3 dungeons are very easy. You go through the Deku or the Deku tree.
The
Very
Deku
easy.
Tree, Dodongo's Cavern, very
Dodongo's
easy.
Cavern, very linear.
Jabu Jabu's
Into
belly is
Jabu
easy,
Jabu's, which is
but it is definitely an
annoying.
escalation. Yeah.
And then you go to the Temple of Time thinking, oh, what's next? I've gotten all 3 stones. And
Yeah, is
suddenly
the game
you are
over?
faced with the Forest Temple.
Which is so much harder.
Which
Yeah.
is
I was stuck in the Forest
an
Temple for
Escalation. Every
I thought it was an
dungeon-
incredible level though.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
the Forest
Yeah.
Temple I think is probably one of the best dungeons in Zelda, period.
The vibes are just so good in Ocarina of Time
It's-
too. I know you guys don't care at all, I guess, about and lore's not even the word that I like to use for it, but the sense when you're going through the dungeons in Ocarina of Time that they are not video game levels.
Yeah.
The Forest Temple
I agree.
was something.
Yeah.
And that's true of all of them. It's although that future patches diminished that in the Fire Temple a little bit, it became less of a place and more of a dungeon, kind of, when they had to change the music and change some things about it. But all of them still feel like a place, especially the Shadow Temple.
The Shadow Temple, I think, is one of those that nails its thematics of death and
Yeah,
Doom.
that and the bottom of the well, which were
Yeah.
both there. Those are the 2 locations.
those are
That and the
hand in
Ganon
hand.
fight.
the same dungeon.
That and the Ganon fight are made worse a little bit in the 3DS version. They censored it a little bit. They removed the
Cut down
blood,
some of the blood and gore.
brightened it up a little bit. That reduces
Which-
the
ugh.
ambiance, but
And
it
I
still
think-
is great.
I think the Shadow Temple's the penultimate moment where you're literally taking a boat down the river Styx of sorts. That's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
iconic.
Yeah, it is. There's
Um,
so much symbolism there.
Yeah, a lot of symbolism. The Water Temple's okay.
The Water Temple is so much better on 3DS because you don't have to go
Yeah.
into the menu to change
The
into
Spirit
the
Temple,
Iron Boots.
honestly, kind of interesting because of its dynamic where it uses the 2 forms that Link can take, kid and adult,
Right.
to get
It
through
makes
the
you
dungeon.
feel. It makes you wonder if at some point they meant to do that more
Yeah.
and didn't. And I'm glad they didn't because I don't think
Are we
there was
missing
that
any
much
dungeons
interesting you
here?
could do with it. I don't think so. I think
I don't
we
think
talked about
are.
all of them.
Yeah, I think we talked
I mean,
about
Ganon's
all of them.
Castle, but
The Ganon's Castle. I think the Ganon fight is the general slow grind up to the Ganon fight in Ocarina of Time. I think has left an impression on so many designers. They keep doing it because I felt
Yeah.
the same dread going up the stairs to Ganon in Tears of the Kingdom when you slowly hear the music get louder as you get closer to Ganon.
yeah.
Like,
Ocarina of
oh,
Time
man.
also probably is my favorite in the trend of Zelda games that have a dark world and a light world. The dark world is the future. And it's
Yeah.
probably the best execution on that idea in any Zelda game.
Yeah.
I really...
thought Twilight Princess did it quite well,
It did.
but
Twilight
I
Princess
agree with
also
that,
had
yeah.
a good lead up to Ganon as well. I think the one thing people picked from Ocarina of Time, at least designer wise, is that having a good lead up to a final boss makes the final boss better.
Yeah. Because the final boss fight by itself is not that great. And
Like,
it's the energy tennis and...
I really didn't like the run up to Calamity Ganon in Breath of the Wild.
No, there's not that much to it.
There's not much to
Yeah.
it. There's no suspense. You just end up fighting Calamity Ganon in the center.
Whereas in Tears of the Kingdom, the run up to the finale is immaculate.
It's so,
you're pogging out of your mind.
Slowly getting louder. You're facing so
I
many
gotta play this
enemies.
game.
Yeah, don't spoil it for Ahmed, but it's the best part of the game by a lot.
So good. It's such a good. I think if all their dev time went into just that moment, I wouldn't be surprised. Because it is paced. It is paced so well. You get the shakes when you get to the end of it.
Yeah.
But I can't say anything about Wind Waker's final boss trudge, but having a good boss trudge to build up anticipation for a boss. And correct me if I'm wrong, that's something they do in Souls-likes too.
Yeah.
The Souls
they used to, at least. It's also, a little less now.
Yeah. Also keep that apprehension and that
they used to make you do the boss run.
And then you walk up to the mist door, and all of a sudden there's a boss there. Like, the boss is there. It's just the apprehension building up to the boss.
Also, like, something that's kind of forgotten now that we're this far removed from Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time is the first time we meet Ganondorf.
Yep.
Like, he was a new character in this game. It had always been Ganon before, which was a giant monster.
Pig man, yeah.
Yeah. This is the first time we see the guy. And then all except for one, every other Ganondorf is this guy. It's just a continuation of the Ocarina of Time story.
Yeah.
Until Tears of the Kingdom, which is a new Ganondorf, which I hate because they do nothing with it.
Yeah, what other one didn't have the same Ganondorf?
There are other Ganons. Ganon has been resurrected. Ganondorf has only been in a few Zelda games. He's been in Ocarina of Time,
Twilight
Wind
Princess,
Waker,
and
Twilight Princess. I think those are the only times he's shown up, and it's always... Those are two different sequels to Ocarina of Time.
And
so those are both the same
depending on where
Ganondorf.
they place Tears of the Kingdom on the timeline, where if they do, if they not. I like to think of that in Breath of the Wild as a soft reboot.
Yeah.
It's
just a boring...
I don't want to place those on timelines. I think they're a soft reboot.
It just makes me mad to think about.
But yeah.
But yeah, Ocarina of Time, though.
It's goated. It's
iconic villain. Ganondorf.
It deserves its 94 on Metacritic.
I think the fact that like when people think of the villain of like the Zelda series, they don't think of the Pigman Ganon.
No, they think of Ganondorf.
No, they think of Ganondorf. Like that cultural influence of a man who's only really appeared in a handful of games in the grand scheme of Zelda. He's still a big villain.
I like all of Ganondorf's designs. I really like the Ocarina of Time design.
Oh yeah,
like,
he was so
Ganondorf
imposing.
Very imposing.
Yeah.
Honestly,
yeah, when he showed up for the first time, it was just like, oh man, this guy is not someone you want to cross paths.
He's also like just a dude. Like, he is just a dude that looks at this child and he's like, I'm gonna kill this kid.
This kid needs to die.
I'm gonna kill this kid.
And I think the fact that they kept him around, you see two versions of him in later games. You see the one where he has some regrets about what he did, and then you have the one where he's just too angry to die.
This is also like the only time Ganondorf outsmarts you, which I feel like is a critical part of his character that gets ignored pretty much all the time. He tricks you. The entire child part of the game, you are being tricked by Ganondorf into collecting the stones so that he can get to the sacred realm. Yeah. And that sucks. Like, a lot of games, I see that coming. I see the twist. I see the villain. I have to play the idiot, but I didn't see it coming in Ocarina of Time.
They never tell you.
shocked.
They never give you any apprehension that there's going to be a twist. You think the game's going to be over. You get the sword. You go kill the dude. You win.
Yeah.
But you
It's an
don't.
incredible twist.
Suddenly,
I
you
just
have
remember
the rest of the game to deal with.
And Sheik. Oh my God, Sheik. This game introduces Zelda's alter ego. Actually, is this the?
Yeah.
This is Sheik's only canonical
only game Sheik's in, I think.
Yeah, and Sheik is like, well, largely because of Smash Bros. I think
Smash, yeah.
But
Smash Bros. Really turned Sheik into more of a
more of
more
an
of a
idea.
mainstay.
Was this the introduction of the Sheikah as a concept, or was
I
that
think-
Kakariko in?
So
Because Kakariko was in A Link to the Past. I'm not sure about that.
I think this is the one where they kind of identify the eye symbol with the Sheikah. I'm not
Yes,
100% sure, but this is the Ocarina of Time. I think was the first one where they really took like the universe and lore seriously, because it starts off with a cutscene of the creation of Hyrule, like the three.
No, I
goddesses.
agree. Ocarina of Time is where they started the Zelda continuity.
Yeah,
And they stuck to it for 17 years.
A long time.
20 years,
They
and then
try
threw
to
it into
fit-
the trash can
yeah.
with Tears of the Kingdom.
they try to fit everything around Ocarina, which
Yeah.
it's a very central figure in the timeline. Do you
And
wanna,
they were awarded with deafening applause.
Yeah. The storyline is honestly pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually remember being invested in Zelda's story for a while there.
Yeah.
You know, around Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, I found the whole Zelda timeline and lore surrounding it fascinating.
Yeah.
But then,
Well, that's all of it. I mean,
well, that's what I'm saying, right? When Nintendo kind of stopped caring, I stopped caring because they're just like, okay, this
Nintendo
isn't
didn't
ever going to
stop
matter.
caring until 2017.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And even then,
Yeah.
they didn't, it didn't come up. And I think it's fine to have a game where it doesn't come up. But Skyward Sword was like really, really interested in the timeline.
Yes.
And the story.
Skyward Sword wanted to be what happened before Ocarina of Time, where the Master Sword come from.
Yeah. And I think it
Yeah.
succeeds at that largely.
It does. And there's a couple games that are before the Master Sword as well. Like I think they had these
Minish Cap.
ideas where they're going to throw pre-Master Sword in, and Force Sword, I believe, as well.
It is strange to me that Nintendo would just throw all this away, which makes me think that maybe in the future they'll retroactively make everything make sense.
Yeah.
I don't
But
think they.
who knows?
I think best case scenario is they just kind of forget about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom narratively. I think it takes a lot of big swings that are going to be very hard to do anything with. And I think it's what I would ignore. I would not, or just ignore Tears of the Kingdom entirely. Because Breath of the Wild has some fun stuff, the Zelda story and stuff, but you can take it or leave it, in my opinion.
Mhm.
You don't really need it. The Draconification, for sure, leave it. We don't need that. That's stupid.
Yeah. That was a plot contrivance.
Yeah. And that, I think that's fine. Like, taking or leaving certain bits of Zelda doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
As long as it's respectful to the history.
which it was not.
Tears of the Kingdom is not even... Tears of the Kingdom is not respectful to you, the player, let alone the story. So... But yeah, no, Ocarina of Time, best game on the N64, easy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you did an average poll of every N64 fan, this game would be at the top.
Yeah, it'd be this or Mario.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, what's your...
My
Last game here.
game is Turok 2.
Oh, you've talked about Turok
Yeah.
in the past.
I have
Yeah.
talked about
It's the
Turok in
dinosaur game,
past.
right?
The dinosaur game? Yeah. Turok 2 was one of those games that I think it's the first time me as a child was exposed to gratuitous gore, and maybe I shouldn't have been playing it at 9 years old.
Yeah,
Because
maybe.
There was a weapon in the game, and I still remember the cheat code to get all the weapons and unlock everything. There's a weapon called the cerebral boar.
Oh, no.
And it's a heat-seeking weapon that works on only enemies that have brains, which there are a couple that don't, so it doesn't work on them. But if they have intelligence, it in the spurt of like ridiculous green, like alien dinosaur blood, will bore into this head with this sickening, like whirring boar sound, and and kill them.
God. That
Like,
sounds like a destroy humans weapon.
FPSs back in the day were not afraid to just be ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I liked about Turok 2, even though its levels were maze-like and everything. It had some weapons that were just out there.
Was it exclusive to the N64?
I don't think so. I think the N64 is just viewed as like the best port.
Okay, that makes sense. It's on Steam now.
Yeah,
so-
it is on Steam now. The Night Dive did a wonderful job porting it to Steam and modern consoles. Yes, I think it was exclusive.
Yep, it was.
It was originally released for Nintendo 64 and ported to Windows in 1999.
Always weird to see a gritty, mature first-person shooter be exclusive to the N64.
Yeah, and
Yeah, you don't really associate that console with that genre.
Oh, and if you had the Rumble pack, it supported or the expansion pack.
The expansion pack to play at a beautiful 640 by 480.
That's beautiful. But the game's gory. It starts off with an iguana just shooting guns as the Acclaim logo pops, or the Iguana Entertainment pops down. The game scared me as a kid, but it also was like, it was one of those games that left an impression on my mind. And maybe it's because of the cerebral bore.
Yeah.
I think hearing that thing and seeing that thing definitely ruined me for life. I might be scarred. It might be the reason why I snap in the future. Who knows? But something about that game just was good. I played it recently. I don't know, like a year ago.
I think you talked about it on the show.
I think I talked about it on the show. Me playing through like the first level and getting lost.
Yeah, I don't know if I saw something like that mind borer thing when at that age. I don't know what I'd do. You know.
Yeah,
I was very much not exposed to that level of violence at under 10 years old or whatever.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I was young. There was a multiplayer port of it too called Turok. What was it called? It was like Turok or Rage Wars was a multiplayer only game.
Rage Wars.
Yeah, it was only multiplayer, and me and my brother would also play that. That's about all I have to say about Turok. The iconic games, they haven't seen a real good game since 1999, since 2000, and Turok 3. So,
and you see Turok, maybe Turok was the thing I was thinking about in the arcade. Turok has dinosaurs, right? That's probably what I was playing in the arcade. I think it was Turok some kind of Turok
had
game.
Dinosaurs, but they're not dinosaurs. They're like alien dinosaurs. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not just all dinosaurs.
Yeah.
All right, then maybe not. But yeah, that is our top 5 N64 games. Do you agree with our list? What are your top 5 N64 games? We'd love to hear them. But yeah, I think we'll move on to what we're playing. I have not been playing anything. I've been very busy, so I'm just going to hand it over to one of you two.
I've been playing Yoshi's Island. I mentioned it last week. I'm going to be real quick with it. I like it. It's colorful. It feels like a Mario game and everything. Calling it Super Mario World 2 is insane, though, to me, because it does not have a world map. And it should. It just... The world map is so iconic in Super Mario World, and I miss it a lot in Yoshi's Island. That's pretty much it. I just like it. It's... I don't know. I love that crayon aesthetic.
All right, Mike, you got anything?
Well, recently, I was going to talk about this last week, but I got caught up in chores and getting busy and building a dog kennel that the dog broke out of, so it's no longer worthwhile. But I've been playing Abiotic Factor, and let me tell you...
Is this the Biology Factorio kind of game?
No, Abiotic Factor is a survival crafting game. But it is themed heavily around being a scientist. You've seen Half-Life and like Black Mesa. And
I've seen this. Yeah.
It's heavily.
I've seen
themed,
NL play this.
It's heavily themed in everything. To be like, what if you were involved in Black Mesa, but you weren't Gordon Freeman? You're just some scientist.
Oh no!
And I've been playing it with my friends, and let me tell you how much fun we've been having being with the science team.
Yeah.
Its base building's good. It's very linear. The world's kind of interesting. I'm intrigued of what's going on. I just went into Silent Hill.
So this is a pre-designed world, right?
Yes.
It's not procedural. Yeah.
It's not procedural, but the portal worlds, which you go into, like the fog world, if you're looking at the Steam screenshots,
yeah,
the Silent Hill dimension and everything.
Those are procedural?
They're not procedural, but they do reset every like 2-3 days in game.
Interesting.
I don't know if they're truly procedural or not, but you can go into them. It's very fun. It is early access. The devs are working really good. They're active. They're talking. They're releasing hot fixes.
Oh, and it's bundled with Slay the Princess. Yeah,
it's only been out since May, so it's fairly recent.
And there's like a level of humor to this game too, right?
Oh yeah, no, every time like when you're running low on something, or like your co-op partners are, you'll hear them talk, and they have the male scientists have this really nasally voice,
Yeah.
and it's like, my blood sugar is running low. Like, it's so out of nowhere and funny that we can't help but laugh about it sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember I think I watched NL play this game with his friends, and they were just dying laughing the whole time.
Yeah.
I might have to look that up.
Like, imagine if you will, you're fighting Slenderman with a nuclear broomstick, you know? Like,
Yeah.
the weapons are all like, what if some nerd decided to create a functional weapon? So you have like a pipe weapon that's also a railgun, like a little pipe pistol with an electromagnetic railgun in it. A lot of the gameplay is just smashing up computers to get parts and smashing things. We haven't gotten that deep. We just got to the second area, which is manufacturing, where we're finding human enemies with pistols and everything. I think it's open up to the fourth area, which is the security area. But it is very nifty. We are having fun. There are carts you can push around and load up with stuff if you need to move base. It has a skill system. It has all the trappings of a survival game, but you can still play it solo because there is a story.
Nice,
Yeah.
but this definitely seems like a game you want to play with friends, right?
It's fun.
Yeah,
with
it
friends,
seems like it'd be
but
funnier.
it does have a story, and characters are customizable. I am very intrigued, and it's what I'm going to be playing tomorrow. But tonight I got to play Deadlock, which we can talk about now if you've played it.
I have
Oh,
not played it
interesting.
yet.
Speaking of Deadlock, is I think I put everyone in the playtest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You did.
It is available. I'm probably going to stream it tonight.
It has a store page now.
Yeah, it does. It's out, or out as it can be.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely interested to hear more about that next week because it's so rare to get a game from Valve.
Yeah, I'll tell about it next week because I'm going to play it after we finish recording.
Sweet. All right, I think that's it. Does anyone else have any games? Any more N64 games you want to shout out? We've talked about so many games today.
Yeah, a lot of games.
Yeah, a lot of games.
Would
A
not
lot
want to
of
have to write a
long one.
description for this episode.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be up pretty late tonight. Let me tell you that. All right. Thank you. Oh, it's over 2 hours. Great. Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy.
Hey, there's some dead air in there that you can cut out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. All right. Thank you all for listening. You can follow us at Podcast Game Talk on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. By the way, all of our episodes are now up on YouTube, and we will be releasing on YouTube concurrently each week. So if you want to listen to us on YouTube, we're there now. But yeah, at Podcast Game Talk on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, etc. Click the link in the description to join our Discord and talk to us there. Please like, rate, and review us on Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, or any other podcast services you use. Thank you, Connor and Mike.
Yeah, see you guys next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Go, huh?